Well, welcome to Game.Set.Chat live at a distance. I'm Chanda Rubin, joined by.
I'm Zina Garrison at a distance.
And we're looking forward to a fun show today. Interesting, Zina. We've had a few things kind of happen this week. What have you been up to?
I actually have been enjoying it. Actually, Chanda, one of my board members for the Zina Garrison Academy just came out with a new movie, and I've literally watched it 4 times. It's called The Lost Husband, and you can watch it on Apple TV. And it is, what I love about this movie is it's set in the country, but the cinematography is absolutely beautiful, and it makes you forget about what's going on right now.
So when does it come out? Is it out already, or did you have an advanced sneak peek?
No, actually it came out on Friday. So,
Okay.
but it's like I said, and oh my God, Josh Duhamel, absolutely the finest on the planet Earth right about now. He is so good looking in this movie. It's crazy.
I got to check it out then. I'm gonna definitely have to check that out. That's a good tip. Now my week's been going, pretty routinely. I did do a little additional work from home for Tennis Channel. So that was fun. It kind of broke up the monotony a little bit and got me reconnected with, with my group and the people I work with. So we had a really good time. We were going over Roland Garros past 5 years. So it was nice to kind of go back down memory lane a little bit. And, hopefully we'll have tennis sooner rather than later. But until then, we want to continue to be safe. But until then, we'll keep connecting this way at a distance.
Yeah. I know it's. I watched a little bit, and I gotta tell you, your set looks so good on there. You're looking good, girl.
Zina, I took your advice. You keep telling me, okay, I need your set design. I need you to bump it up a little bit. I need you to move, put some props, do this, do that. So I've been trying to work on it. I'm not the best, but it's coming along. So as we kind of move forward into today's show. I want to kind of mention again why we created this. So Zina and I started talking about what we could do, kind of what we could create during this time of being at home. And we came up with this idea of chatting. Zina and I have had plenty of conversations this way where we've been on the phone, we've been on our couches, we've been talking about matches, we've been talking about what's going on. And so, it'd be kind of cool, to do that now and to give all of you kind of a sneak peek into some of the things we talk about, how we talk about things, and also to have different guests on. So that was the premise, and we are excited today to have a fantastic guest, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, who is a good friend of mine, a very good friend of Zina's as well. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, ladies. How y'all doing?
We are good. I mean, you need no introduction, but of course, you are like a million-time Olympic medalist. You've got 6 Olympic medals in your back pocket somewhere. With all the other accolades, you have been a phenomenal, iconic athlete, and we are just happy that you're joining us today. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I love you both, and I love the idea, the concept of, what you have created. So I'm just in awe of you ladies.
Well, so Jackie, what have you been?
Go ahead,
I'm just curious. What have you been doing? During this time. I mean, how have you been keeping busy? Have you been kind of keeping to a certain routine? What's your days like?
One thing about being shut in is that I still have my community work. I still have board meetings. I still talk with our staff. We're still trying to find ways to get food to our students. We're also engaging with them either by telephone or by computers, just trying to see how their days are going. But then also trying to find ways where I can get out and do some exercising because I am an asthmatic. I am concerned, but I try not to try to do too much, because we have no idea where this virus has come from and how it is just taken over. But I do have faith. And so pretty busy through conferences like this, being able to meet, but social distancing and physical distancing is, the new norm right now.
Well, Jackie, you actually, and a lot of people don't realize this because, you and I go way, way, way back. And one of my besties, and we talk on a regular. But give us a little bit more, because I was always amazed that you built a Boys and Girls Club. And you had your foundation way back when athletes weren't even talking about doing foundation. You were like probably one of the first that I know.
It was a vision of mine because I came through a community center, and that community center exposed me to a lot of things, being able to, at that time, go to the library, learn how to check out books, be a part of the Meals on Wheels program. Also, I learned my Roman numerals, and that's how I got involved in athletics. And so I had this vision early on that I wanted to give back to the community, because so many people invested in me at a time that I didn't know why they were investing in me. So in return, I started my work in the early 80s. And after I lost my mom to the worst form of meningitis in 81, but then I didn't really start my foundation until 1988, right after the 88 Olympics. And from there, I said I didn't need a building at that time to help people, but I knew I wanted to build a community center. And so in 2000, we opened the Jackie Joyner-Kersee Center that we do door-to-door transportation. Before all of this, we pick them up from school, bring them to the center. We use sports as a hook to get them in the door, but then they also go through the enrichment. We got the STEM, we got the sports, and I have a curriculum called Winning in Life, so that's another character in leadership. So it's all threaded throughout what we do.
Well, it's very interesting.
Go ahead, Zina.
I've got so many things with
Go for it.
I just wanted to touch a little bit more on the fact of, I remember coming to when you opened that center, and that was absolutely amazing. And I think, didn't you partner with Nike or something?
Back then, I had a lot of support from a lot of people that we needed to raise insurmountable amount of money, to open the center. So at that time, I was sponsored by Nike, and now I'm with Adidas. So so it makes a difference because they keep supporting what I'm doing. And the great thing about it, though, Zina, I didn't really touch upon it, but Zina was my role model, and even though my husband worked with her, but I would come and I would train with her, and I just learned so much from her without her knowing it, because we talked about different things that we could see women doing and how we could work together and just trying to reach out to the next generation. It was because of Zina that I was able to meet you, and then also being able to meet the Williams sisters, when Serena and Venus was, I think, 8 and 10 at that time. Their dad had us to come to Florida. So Zina has always, to me, been the pioneer, and just one that continue to encourage people like myself, and so many more out there.
That's what I'm curious about. So, of course, Zina also was a mentor and a role model for me as well. But I'm curious, these training sessions between you and Zina, I mean, what did that look like? A couple of great athletes. I can't even, I just need to know. I need an idea of what that looked like.
Wait, Jackie, let me go first on that one, because I have to tell the story. I got 2 stories, but I got to tell the first one. I went to visit Bobby and Jackie, and I stayed with them at their house and everything. And I thought I could, run. I thought I was fast. I thought I was quick. So go out to the track, and all of these gold medalists are out there, and I'm just running away and just moving, and they are cracking up laughing. They're on the ground laughing, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And Jackie's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Run." She goes, "No, you're not." Bobby's like, "Oh, 5 o'clock in the morning, we are going to teach you how to run." This is a true story. He got me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We would go and get on the treadmill, and I learned how to run like an athlete. So after that month was over, I went back out and I wanted to show everybody my stuff and all these Olympic gold medals. I was like, "Go, Zina, finally, you know how to run." So that's a true story.
Okay, but so Zina, how did you run before, and what kind of tips, how did you have to learn how to run?
Jackie, you can go ahead and tell me about that one.
Yes. So it's one thing about moving on the tennis court, so a lot of people confuse the two with, because Bobby philosophy is
I'm
getting you in
confused.
condition. And, he knows she has the skills. She has all of that, but I was like, Zina, what are you doing? So we would just break it down and and tell her, to go straight, versus side to side, because that's with tennis, but that's the quickness in tennis is something that is advantageous to her game, but
Right.
also how to efficiently use your energy wisely so it can help you have the durability to stay on the court a lot longer than your opponent. And so that's what it was
Ah.
coming down to, because Zina would waste energy, head bobbing everywhere. What are you doing?
Okay, and
Don't
so
leave
in
out.
tennis, with that quick first step as well, you want to try to be as efficient when you're
Oh
changing
yeah, because
direction
she had
and
that down.
yeah.
Well, and
Go ahead, Z.
don't leave out Monica Seles, because I wasn't my only tennis player that Bobby trained.
Oh yeah, yeah. Monica too. It was like, but the great thing about it is that these are really great women, and and they took it in, because you're talking about Monica Seles, Zina Garrison. They're at the top of their game,
Yeah,
and they
and
coming out, and we're all working
intense
together.
athletes. Yeah,
Yes,
with
very intense,
focus
and
and yeah, a different mentality.
you
So
know.
to be a fly on the fence watching that, wow.
Oh wow, we had our we had our good times, and Zena would be out there with me when I was having a hard time too, because I'm an asthmatic, and days I'm like, oh, I'm having a whew, because I was hard headed. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to believe I had asthma, so I just want to go against everything. I didn't want to take my medicine. And one time, I think we were at Rice, weren't we? And I had the
Rice University.
oh my God, it got so hot. Zena thought I was stripping down. I was like, no, my body's hot. I'm trying to get air. We already running, brief and a little broad top. So, it was just the norm, but my body was just hot. And so
I mean,
we've been connected ever since.
I mean, it's incredible when you say that you were asthmatic. When did you learn that you were? I mean, did you always know from a young age? And when did you accept finally that you had to make adjustments because of it?
I did know at an early age that I had the symptoms, because we ignored them, because I did all these things athletically, and there was no way I could be an asthmatic, because I could run, jump, throw, swim, do everything. But then once I got to college, I was having some real, real tough times. And I had to really figure out what was going on. Didn't realize that I was allergic to certain foods that would trigger it. Even fresh cut grass, I would stretch on the grass, and I was so afraid. I thought they were going to take my scholarship away, because I didn't know what was going on. But then finally, once I was diagnosed, I still didn't believe them, because they would put me on medication, and then I'd be feeling great. So I'm like, oh, I don't have it anymore. And then 2 weeks later, I'm sick again, So I just had to.
Stubborn.
Yes, I was very stubborn, live in denial. But then I realized that there were days when I could run a mile couldn't even think of it. Then days I go out there, I didn't even look like I was a world-class athlete. I couldn't even make one lap around the track. And I was like, oh my God. So internally, I just started saying I have to get my asthma under control. And I started using it like one of my opponents. So not being upset with the doctors, and use them as another coach, so I can control what was happening, because it was frightening. And that was early 81. And then probably, I think 85, between 85 and 87, I had my first attack. And that's when I realized, oh, this is nothing to play around with. Because to me, when you can't breathe and you don't know where your next breath going to come from, and I go hard all the way. And, because if you slow down or if you walk, in my mind, oh, it's like I'm quitting on myself. Not realizing, realizing that I have an asthmatic condition, and I had to accept that. that it has nothing to do with me being out of shape. Because when I couldn't run like I wanted to, I'm like, oh, I'm out of shape. The world coming to an end, But
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah. So, well, I love that story and just the self-awareness at a certain point of having just to take ownership and excel through it. Now we have some questions, people online, so I want to get to some of those. Zena, if you want to jump in, just raise your hand and let me know. But we have one comment though I want to get in. Anita Montanil or Montanile. Hopefully I'm not butchering it too much, but says Zeno's trying to hang with the Greyhounds, and we were talking about the story of Untitled. I love that line. but we have a question from Adam, who's been on I think all three. This is our third show, and he's been on each time. But he wants to know, how do you think, Jackie, your athleticism would translate to the tennis court?
You know what? I could be fast. I would go out there and hit with Zena, but I would hit home runs. The ball would go. So, but I have so much respect for the game because it's a lot of endurance, a lot of mental training, and physically once you're there, but sometimes you hours and hours, and I just have respect for the players. And everybody always say, "Oh, you could do that." No, because I am one that I believe you have to put the work in. And it's easy to point out and say, "Oh, yeah, I might have did this on the athletic field. Oh, yes, I might be able to do this on the tennis court." But it takes more. To me, it takes more than just the physical aspect of it. It's the mental preparation and putting it all together.
Yeah, and,
Yeah,
and
and
that's a good. Yeah, go ahead,
I
Zena.
want to add, I want to add to that. Have trained with Jackie and Bobby. They were everything was totally professional with them all the time, and it was always about hard work. But also, Bobby felt that you should enjoy yourself too. So it was like he was serious, but like, hey, we're still people. But
Right.
one of the biggest things that I remember about you guys was being out there and having and working out with you guys. You guys were working with bands, those rubber bands, way
Yes.
before
Yeah. Oh my God.
even started doing that. And I remember saying to Bobby, like, what is this going to do? And his whole thing was thinking different from the aspect of like you would rehab to stay healthy rather than
Right.
people rehab to like they done been hurt. So,
Hmm.
Jackie, tell us a little bit about that too, because you guys were ahead of your time for that.
Yeah, we actually, with my physical therapist, Bob Forster, who was out of Santa Monica, and he was young when he started. We all were young, but everything was preventative. A lot of people would say, well, why are you going to a physical therapist? You're not even hurt. What we were doing was preparing our bodies and being able to be in tune with our bodies. So it was Bobby wanted us to understand our bodies. So if something was going on, communicate with him because he knew we were ones that weren't trying to get out of workouts. So even when Zena is talking about the like they got these rubber bands now, we used to go to the hardware store and buy surgical tubing, and we would
Oh.
take that tubing and it would allow us to work on our hamstrings. I work on my flexibility with my shoulders, everything. If I was traveling, so you put it in the door and you can still do leg curls, all kind of different things, and resistant work, not really knowing why we were doing this, but we were doing it. And now I see people got all these bands out now. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
where's the JJK band or the Zina Garrison band? There's a product out there that we were way before our time. So everything that I see now, it's not like amazing to me, where it might be amazing to others. Like, whoa, I'm like, believe me, you
Mhm.
work with what you have. We would even go and get piping just to work on running over hurdles. Just trying to find different things that you could simulate what you're doing on the track if you didn't have the equipment. So that's why the young people I work to today, they don't, there's no excuse. We're gonna make some lanes. We're gonna run on the grass because you can run anywhere and you could do it. You don't have to have all this fancy equipment.
Yeah.
If you want it bad enough, you will figure out a way to get it done.
Well, that is a great point, Jackie, and it kind of goes to one of the questions that we have as well from one of our viewers, Anita. Again, it's asking, how did you what kind of time did you put in the training, and how did you stay motivated? So you've been talking a little bit about that, but specifically for you, what did you use? I mean, to be so great for so long.
I think my attitude was that I wasn't great, so I trained to be the best, and knowing that I would put in the work and that no one could outwork me. But I also set goals, and understood that these are the goals that I have set for myself, and allow my coach, who was my husband, and allow my teammates to push me to reach my goals. But understanding that these are the goals that I have set for myself, not the expectation of others. So if I fell short, then I had to look in the mirror and say, did I do everything humanly possible to get the job done? Or did I get out there and look for a reason for something, not to go right? You deal with injuries, and then all of a sudden, people say be positive, but it's tough being positive. But that's when your inner soul is tested. That's when you test everything.
I mean, I'm always curious about that mentality for athletes, certainly for myself as well. I mean, that was always like what you want to kind of keep testing and pushing yourself to make sure you were doing everything. Zina, how did you kind of look at, how did you approach your tennis from that perspective, staying motivated year after year, trying to look at ways to improve? How did you approach that?
Well, for me, I was really lucky because I had only 5 coaches in my lifetime, which is, Chanda, that's unusual. Everybody switches coaches
especially
all the
now.
time. But, each coach allowed me to learn something different. But I had this coach, Angel Lopez, out of San Diego, who really stressed the mental part. Like Angel was like, he would have books, and he was, start working on therapy. And then when I worked with Bobby, Bobby did it in another way. He did it in making it very simple minded, but he was always constantly working on your mind. And even Bobby didn't know that much about tennis when he started working with me and Monica, but Bobby got books out, and he would, ask me questions. He would ask me questions in the respect of, how, Zina, so when you're making this move mentally and physically, how does your body react going this way? And girl, sometimes if I wake up in the morning, I want to say, Bob, really? But 24 hours. Right. And I'm saying all that is all the coaches that I had and the people that I were around helped me to understand that it was mind, body, and soul. It just wasn't one. And I think a lot of athletes especially tennis, I still see they only want to work the body and they don't want to do anything.
All right.
That is so true. For me, I always felt like, when you go out playing in front of lots of people, tens of thousands of people on a big stadium, you can't hide. So you can have done all the training physically, but if mentally and emotionally all of that's not together as well, if you haven't kind of combine those aspects, it's gonna show, and it's not gonna be a good day. So
yes, and I would just add that preparation. How you prepare and train is how you're gonna perform. And a lot of times, athletes think that, I'm not gonna work hard in practice, but then they're gonna go to the track meet or to the match and turn it up a notch, and that's how you end up getting injured because your body have not been prepared or trained through that. Then that's when you start having the mental breakdown, and then you start doubting everyone, and then you start searching for another place to go instead of like being grounded and being centered and recognizing that you have the power. You have taken your own power away because you didn't do what you were supposed to do mentally, physically, and spiritually, to get the job done.
That's a great point. We have Kamal on, Zina. Your friend, my friend. Okay, so, but but he's asking a little bit off of the points we've just been talking about. But how do you keep motivated for athletes today? What advice would you give? They get so much so quickly, and at times it seems like they don't have to work as hard, to get the notoriety, to get the money, to get that publicity. What advice would you give to them in order to stay motivated?
I would say my advice to them, is that one, you have to stay humble. If you know, and if you're gonna be in the sport, I know for me, I stayed in the sport as if I wasn't an Olympic champion. So every day I came training as if I'm still trying to learn from my coach. I had to always be coachable, regardless of how much the world was saying how great I am, and even in our sport, the little monies that we were making, that I didn't allow that to dictate my life. In a sense, it made my life comfortable, but I understood the struggle, what it took for me to get there, and that the respect that I would have for my coaches. And I do think that today everything is earned by the athletes, but then sometimes we take it for granted and then forget about when no one knew who you were, the individuals that was with you that while you struggle. To me, those are the people that I want to stay connected to, because there's a lot of people that can come into your life when everything is going well, but then all of a sudden, when you stumble a little bit, then see how many of those same individuals stay around you. Are they going to look for the next best thing? You know, and that sometimes can make you're lonely, you know, but you always, that's where I'd say you got to stay grounded in your beginning, on your rise to becoming one of the best.
Well, Jackie, on that note, I'm over here laughing because I can tell you was about to start preaching.
Yeah.
But, you know, you hit so many points. But to that point also, Chanda, I personally think that sometimes the newer athletes, because they make so much money, they have a tendency to think they've already made it. And just because you know, have already made it does not matter. And, you know, that's what I love about Serena. Serena is still going for it no matter what.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, one of the richest athletes, or, you know, even Sharapova before she retired. That's when you know that there's a true love for the game and not just, you know, look at my bank account. Okay, but
right.
You know, what are you doing to be the best that you can possibly be?
Yeah,
And
I mean, to me,
Zina, you say that, and I think also the respect of authority, you know, respect of your coach, because sometimes you think because your bank account is larger than theirs that I can tell you what to do now, instead of looking at that person have helped me to earn that income and do what I need to do. We did this together. It's a winning combination of the both of us, not just me.
True. That's a great point. And, you know, you think about those great athletes who maintain that killer instinct, who maintain that drive to keep wanting more, to keep getting more titles. Like, that's what's special, because even once you get to a certain level, it's easy to become complacent, to think, okay, I'm here, I'm at this ranking, I've won this title, you know, I don't need to do any more, or, you know, to try to work towards doing more it's hard. You know, I want to just enjoy the accolades. I want to enjoy the money. I want to enjoy everything that comes with it. And it's very difficult to kind of maintain that edge to keep pushing to get more and more.
And it's okay for them to enjoy it. But, you know, consistency is everything. You look across the board. When you see the success of someone, you would see a pattern. It's the consistency of coaches, because once someone starts to change coach, they going to bounce around because they're looking for something that it's not there. You're not going to find it in the next person. Right. You know,
not finding it. Yeah.
So you have to figure it out. And that's a part of life. You know, things are not going to go right. And then you got to somehow, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to go over here now. No, you're going to run into the same issue because you have not figured it out yet. The figuring out is you, because you're the one that's making all the decision. You know?
Yeah, and to tag a little bit on that, I'd like to ask you, Chanda, you and Jackie, this question. Do you think that the younger people that are coming up should know their history a little bit better? Like who became before them, and what are some of the struggles they went through?
I definitely think it's helpful. Certainly coming up in an individual sport as a young player. I started playing when I was 15. You know, you don't really know anything. You're just thinking about yourself, your game, what you want to accomplish. And sometimes you're completely disconnected, or you just don't know enough about the history of players and people who came before you, who did and accomplished things And in some cases, I felt like it relaxed me a little bit more. It kind of gave me something to tie on to, especially in difficult moments. I wasn't the first. I wasn't inventing the wheel. There are people who had struggled, some more than I did. And so I think it's always good for young players to know their history, young athletes to understand, and not be in a bubble. And it just makes you a better person and a better competitor as well, I think.
And I agree. I think the history of knowing the people who have come before you, not only in your sport, but even we are very blessed that we're able to travel the world. And so to know and to respect the laws of not your nation, but the other nations. But then you also see the younger generation coming up, and those who have studied the sport, you could tell, they know. And they have respect, because we all know there's going to be someone else eventually. But it's respect. Everybody, you just respect. I think respect is so important.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that. I never forget. I was doing interviews for TNT at Wimbledon. And so Roger Federer had already become Roger Federer. And of course, I'm thinking there's no way, my first interview with Roger, he would even know who I was. And I never forget, he walked in there. He's like, "You lost to Martina in the finals in 19." I'm like, "What?" But that right there let me know that, he was well into tennis. And so I'm always curious to know what people think about that question.
I think that's a good one, and I think even it's very important, but it's so important, today, and there's so many great athletes out there, but you look at the ones. I look in the sport of track and field, Allison Felix or Sonia Richards. They know the sport. They have an appreciation for the people who had come before them. Why, so. And then with women, we have to find a way. How do we continue to uplift one another? It's already, we have other battles, but these are battles that we don't need to fight. We need to embrace and come together and pull for one another.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have another question from one of our viewers, Jackie, just wanting to know, this is Brothers on Tennis. They just wanting to know what you're doing to stay in shape now. You've been a phenomenal athlete. Is there anything that is still challenging to you?
Everything is challenging, but I continue to do, I'm into this walking. Walking was always a part of our training. Zina can attest to that. So I try to get out the 4 miles in under an hour. And do some static work. I also try to continue to do stretching. I'm bringing back those the tubing stuff. Now that we're on the inside. But then also I continue to find time to work on balance, because I think the older we become, balance is so important. And so for me, that's what I'm doing. And also, just working with young people. They keep you young at heart. But they always want to challenge you. But I know my limits. I'm not trying to get out there and run, against anybody. I can demonstrate and I can show you, but I'm not going to get in no foot race or let somebody, one of the kids say, "Can you jump? Let us see you jump at 24 feet." I'm like, "Really?" Okay.
I love that.
Jackie, following up on definitely remember the walking situation, because I remember you and Bobby taught me, every time I would finish a workout, Chanda, we would have to walk for 30 minutes. I'm like, 30 minutes? Like, I'm tired, I'm bored. And Bobby's thing was either you walk or you start the workout all over again. So
right.
Actually loved to walk, but I remember asking him one day, and he said to me, "Zina, the whole thing about walking is making sure." Now, this is how Bobby was. It was about the Achilles, keeping them loose and warming them down. And someone that has had major Achilles problems, I learned to love, but I always hear in the back of my head, Bobby's like, "Cool down, go out and walk." But that 30-minute walk used to be, I'm like, I am dead tired. I do not. He would have the timer on you.
Oh yeah. I had to get on Zena. I'm like, Zena, this is not no Sunday stroll. We gotta walk. Come on. We gotta walk like at 4.0. Let's go.
I was going to ask you about why walking, but now that makes sense. And you're still pushing your body, but in a different way to kind of keep a little more suppleness, I guess, to the muscles and
Yes.
tendons. That's a good
And
way to
also
go.
for a warm up, because when you think about it, it warms up your ankles, your toes, your
True.
feet, all before you get to doing a whole lot of ballistic stuff. So you would know from walking if your Achilles is tight, your calf is tight, so it's all a
That's
part
where
of
I
the
went
warm up.
wrong. Jackie, that's where I went wrong. So after our practices, when I was younger, after our practices, we had to run a mile after working out for like 2 hours, which it was shorter, was maybe 7, 8 minutes, something like that, between that and 10 minutes.
That's
on how old
pretty
I was.
good.
But like running it, I didn't like that, but I thought, okay, I guess that's the best way to go. I should have been walking it.
Yeah, but what Zena didn't add is that no, you would walk the mile for a warm up. Then you come back and do your workout on top of that. And when you finish, you gotta do that 2 miles.
Do it again. Okay.
So
okay. I missed that middle part.
I was trying to forget about that part. Obviously, some things just totally like. But Jackie, one other thing before I have gotten, most people do not know this about you, but Jackie had a race car. And
God.
A real race car.
Yeah.
That was Bobby. We were all in there.
That was the first time I went to was it Daytona, right?
Daytona, yes. Daytona 500.
I never forget. I was being a supportive friend, and so Jackie had this car, in the car, and I got down in that pit and I could not breathe. It's like this thing. And I never forget Jackie and Bobby's telling me, like, you got to diversify. You got to do different things.
See?
Please tell us about the how did you get into race car and when Black people weren't even thinking about race cars back then?
You know what? The one thing, Bobby studies everything. And so what was intriguing about NASCAR was that how they dealt with sponsors. So for myself, I was a heptathlete, and everybody would sponsor the fastest human, the fastest man or fastest woman. But being a multi-eventer, people just still today have a hard time saying heptathlon, So it was more not just seeing how people drive a race car, but looking at the pit crew. He would show us how important it is working as a team. But then also you recognize there wasn't a lot of diversity in there, but learning the different things that we were trying to do. And so we got in there, we just didn't have the resources to, to keep it up. And this was way before now, people are really into it. But I'm very fortunate to have a community center and having a partnership with Worldwide Technology and NASCAR, that we have cars in our center that our kids can practice on a simulator, and not only do they see, they also can go to any track in the world, but then they also see the STEM behind, the science and everything, and becoming, a part of NASCAR.
That's fantastic.
So a lot of the things that you were doing before, you now have put them into for learning for younger kids. That's really awesome, Jackie.
Yes, and that's why the whole thing with winning in life is a curriculum around character and leadership. But dealing with the 14 different principles that we all have confidence, but then how is that threaded throughout young people and them trying to find a pathway to jobs and understanding why soft skills are so important. But now with this. Hope this ain't our new norm, where you could hug someone, you could shake a hand, now hands off. So, and even thinking about working with, we looking at esports opportunities, and just trying to really, continue to help our young people to understand that, you don't have to be just a consumer. Why not produce why not be able to be writers on some of these games? And we have the ability, we're working on that in the next 4 months to be able to do that with some of our young people. And then I get to have hopefully an all-girls team too. That's what I'm shooting for. Yes.
Chanda, she's still competitive
no doubt. I have no doubt. I can see it.
Oh, you know what? I will tell you something now. I knew I was a competitor, right? Oh my God. You know, this is so, I'm so ashamed. So one of the things, like during the summer, what I like to see for our younger kids is that teach them how to tie their shoestrings, because they don't know how to tie shoes. We have like some 4-year-olds, 4 and 5-year-olds, because every time I come through there, I'm getting down tying their shoestrings. So one of the kids, it was like, okay, I taught them how to do tie the shoe right. I said, okay, let's go. Before I knew it, I was competing with the kid. I was like, oh, I'm finished, but I'm like, oh my God, my board president, her name Michelle Sherrod, she was like, Jackie, no, you didn't. I'm like, yeah, did I do that?
with the little baby.
Yes.
But Jackie, also,
go ahead,
Chanda.
Zina. I can talk in
Jackie, also let us know, you know, I talk to you and people still, it's so funny to me when I'm like, you know, they're like, oh, you talk, Jackie's one of your best friends. I'm like, Jackie and I talk once or twice a week and we always trying to solve the world. But let our viewers know some of the things that maybe you haven't accomplished that you would like to accomplish. Like, I personally know that you want your own line of children's books. So.
Yeah, so, you know, I think this must be the year, you know. You're in, you know, but I just have to, I get all these ideas running through my mind. You know, I have the story, you know, Zina said, Jackie, the story's already there, you know, you just got to, I'm like, okay. So, yes, so I think when we were talking about young athletes knowing the history, but see, to me, I think that's just as important, because a lot of the young kids that I deal with today, a lot of them never have seen me compete at all. So it's being able to, we have Head Start as a part of my center that, you know, they are always asking me to come and read a children's book, and they always ask me for my book. So I did this part of this series, Madam President, with PBS, and the first time I was in animation form. And I said, all these are stories that keep telling me, Jackie, where's the children's book? You know, I have this 3 series in my mind. I have one around asthma, but then also just, I have this one that is the potato chip bag, where I would take sand. Me and my sisters would go to the park and bring the sand to my front yard so I could practice long jumping. You know, but you never get enough sand. But just in the kids' mind. And so, yes, that's one. And there's several things out there that I'm working on that, you know, so Zina is always pushing me in. And even a concept around, I love this show. That's why I told Zina, I said, yeah, I love to come on and do it. I said, because I was just thinking about, you know, because I got girlfriends, we talk, and, you know, but it's good to, I was telling Zina who we call our influencers, not who the world is calling influencers, bringing a circle of them together, because each and every one has something unique and special about what make us who we are, and having that kind of dialogue around it. And then something around teams, you know, that I'm always looking at. I remember when I was coming up, BET had Teen Summit. I just love that show, you know, where young people can have a voice, express themselves, and be able to get feedback. And
yeah, that's special. Interact with other people their age and get ideas, and you know, kind of be on the same level, you know, speaking to somebody on the same level, which is powerful.
Right. Because, you know, they know it all.
Well,
yeah, for sure. And it was interesting because, Jackie and I were talking the other day, and, you know, she told, I also want to have, do a couple children's books, but I want to do it around my dog, Sochi, because I'm always talking in her. Which when I have something to say on Facebook, I put Sochi out there, like Sochi saying it. But so if anybody come back, I'm like,
Sochi's just the leader of that
I
house.
know.
I already know. I mean, I've been watched Sochi in the past. It's amazing.
Right.
The thing about it is, Chanda, what I love about Jackie is from the day that we met, we clicked, and we have always been trying to pass it down to the younger ones. Now, they ain't always listen, but it's been, the fact that we both have a very similar heart. But this one right here, I still say to her almost probably every time we talk, Jackie, you're the greatest athlete that ever lived. Jackie, you're the greatest athlete. She's like, but I actually feel fortunate enough to be able to call, like we had Billie Jean on the show, Jackie.
Oh,
Billie
great.
Jean and Jackie Joyner-Kersee, to have both of them, to call them my friends, and Chanda, for them to have them on our show is actually amazing.
Yeah. And I'm just happy I can call you a friend, Zina, because then I can touch them through you as well.
No.
But
Chanda, I appreciate
phenomenal.
you too. You made it possible for, one of my donors to be in the president box at the Tennis US Open. I appreciate that. It's just amazing that the admiration that people have for the both of you, and so.
No, thank you. Well,
love it.
I think, making these kinds of connections and, appreciating others who have excelled in their fields, in their sports, in what they're doing. I mean, it just makes us all better. And the fact that we can, kind of connect and help each other out in different ways, because you never know, what you might be doing may fall within their wheelhouse, and they can kind of give you something you need and vice versa. So I just think that it's so important. And I've learned more and more about that as I've gotten older, as I've gotten more experience, and I've been trying to do more. I appreciate those things tremendously. So thank you, Jackie. And it's been fantastic being your friend as well. And hopefully we can keep it going.
Yeah, we will.
Now speaking.
One last thing, Jackie, before you leave, we also want to make sure that we get your website. And if anybody's interested in going and helping out the kids, so we definitely want to get your website. So.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. Now we were talking though about Jackie and being, the greatest athlete that ever lived. So that is one of our questions. Jackie, how did you feel about being named Sports Illustrated Best Female Athlete of the 20th Century? I mean, what is that like?
You know what? I didn't understand the magnitude of it, because you live in a time and it's like
the 20th century,
like 100 years, and yes, so for me, very honored, and it means I can see why now, like when you're younger, you in the mix of stuff, you understand, but you don't. But the more you remove from your sport and things that you've done keep coming up, really speaks volume, not only to me, but to the people around me who helped me to achieve the things that I was able to achieve. And so I'm so grateful and blessed, and to be able to pay it forward, be able to inspire, encourage others that, hey, this little girl from East St. Louis, Illinois.
Well, I want to add another question, because we do have Leslie Allen who was on our second show. It didn't get recorded, so we're going to get Leslie on again for sure. But she has young girls that she's worked with, and she continues to try to inspire as well, the win for life attitude. And one of her questions kind of tagged off of something we were talking about earlier, but with young people, having teams around them, certainly players, tennis players, but even just young people who have their parents, their support kind of system doing everything for them, where they don't always have to take ownership of what they're doing, and just deal with where they can improve. They can always blame others. How do you kind of help kids kind of think differently about that? How do you help them, even though we're competitive, how do you help them to sort of take ownership of things that they're doing that they can improve on, maybe they didn't do as well? How do you help them in those areas?
You know, my advice is that one, you have to be accountable, you know, and that is very important that whatever goals that you set for yourself, these are your goals. Your parents are your parents. They are there to support you. But if you don't show up, that's a mark against you. So it started talking about your discipline, recognizing your responsibility. What's your self-worth, you know, and then keeping it in perspective because you can't hide behind your parents forever. I think if you 13, 14, you're young, you should be enjoying yourself. Yes, you're making a little money, but you also have to be accountable. You know, is that you have a budget. Understand what if you spend over that budget, then okay, you out for the week. I remember when I went to college and I got my Pell Grant, I got that money I spent in the summer, I ain't have no money. I was like, oh my God, what I'm gonna do? I gotta find a job. So you learn from your mistakes. So I think it's very important that we don't give our kids everything, help them to earn it and help them to appreciate it. So then they'll know what it takes to get it and to hold on to it. Because if you give them everything, then it's going to be hard down the road because they're going to always be looking for someone to give them something and instead of working for it.
Wow. That's deep. Now, Zina, I'm going to ask you kind of similarly, specifically on the tennis player side. You know, these kids, they start making a lot of money early. They have a couple of good results, and it's like tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, plus, you know, what they're getting in sponsorship. How do you help that type of person, you know, stay grounded? What is your advice to kind of help them stay kind of plugged into where they need to be and taking ownership of how they can keep improving and where, you know, they can step up more?
Well, Chanda, that's a very difficult one in our sport because they are so young. So you know you do kind of somewhat need the parents' involvement a little bit. It's just getting, in my opinion, getting the parents to understand that you know they have to separate themselves as being the parent and also like and being the mother and the father, and allowing the kid to grow. It's a really, and I believe looking back, a lot of, especially when they're 13 and 14, they need to have some serious responsibility. They should be washing dishes or putting their clothes up.
They're not doing that.
No, you know, it might sound very simple, but these are teaching them responsibility. You know,
Right.
yeah. I remember coaching for a Fed Cup and walking in and on one of the players' room, and before I opened the door, I was like, clothes everywhere. I'm like, you got to get this stuff together because this is going to affect you on the court because they don't understand that the things around them, what they learn, all those things it's going to help them or hurt them on the court. And so to answer the question, one of my biggest things will be, first of all, to respect yourself and respect others. Sometimes with young players, they have a tendency, I'm great, I'm the one, or whatever. So
Right.
You know, so first and foremost, Jackie said the accountability. That's the other one. But you know, but they also need to learn some chores. Just I don't care how much money you're making, you need to learn how to clean up your room, or you need how to be respectful of the surroundings and the space that you're in. And Chanda, you know what I mean when you go into a lunchroom and they just get up and leave and they got crumbs everywhere. I'm like, really?
Yep, and hadn't thought twice about it. Yep. Yeah, it's true. And I'm kind of dealing with a little bit of it now. I have a 3-year-old. And, you know, so it's okay. How much do you start doing that now? I think you should start a little bit. I think you should build. So even like now, it's like, you got to make your bed. Now it's hard for her. She's only 3, but it's a toddler bed.
Right.
So we work with her on it. Like you got to make your bed in the morning. Oh, your bed's not made. Why's your bed not made? And so I kind of try to reinforce little things like that. And I keep trying to figure out, okay, how much more do I need to do at each stage? Because that's a concern. You know, I'm giving her a lot. She's not going to have to worry about a lot of stuff, but I want her to appreciate and feel like she has to work, like she's accountable in some ways. So it's kind of a challenge trying to figure out sort of what that needs to look like.
There is a statistic out there, and I just read this probably about 6 months ago. Most very successful people made their beds at a very young age. and they still.
Oh,
It
okay.
has
I
something.
didn't know that.
Go look at the statistic. It's definitely out there, but they were saying people, Bill Gates and all, but it's something about organizing, getting yourself
Hmm.
organized for your day. And
Mm.
I think that's true because when I get out of my bed and I can hear my mother saying, "Where you going?" and my day is organized
Yes.
like my bed is.
Right.
Love that. Now, okay, so we've got about 5 or so minutes left, but I want to get one question that's a little more serious. It kind of deals with the virus, COVID-19,
Mm.
and for all of us, they're sort of asking how long would it take us to be comfortable, sort of get back out traveling with the way things are currently, and even touching on the Olympics. Tokyo was postponed until next year. So I'm curious, you two being Olympic medalist. What are your thoughts on sort of how that's going to look for next year? I mean, this is a big change, and what's your viewpoints on those two things?
For me, the uncertainty of knowing when there's going to be a vaccine, you know, we don't know. I know you don't ever want to live in fear, but I think it's really it's not so much living in fear, but being smart and
Mm,
listen to the scientists and being able to when as a nation we can come together. We're seeing the social distancing and physical distancing is working, but I'm an asthmatic and I don't want to be exposed, and so
mm-hmm.
uh, that's it. This is a tough one, because I know like our kids that young people who weren't able to finish their spring, sports and, then the professional leagues, then you're talking about uh, the Olympics, but who cares about any of that? I remember when we did a thing, if there were no sports, right? If there were no scientists, no doctors, no nurses, no first responders, wow, look where we would be. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's bigger and it's
That's true.
deeper, and that I'm praying and and just hoping that they find some kind of cure
Vaccine.
or some
Yeah, we
yeah, a
need a
vaccine or
vaccine. Yeah,
something
and
that
testing.
can make us feel
Absolutely.
comfortable, because it's one
Yeah.
thing to say, oh, you could go out, but people are going to be leery of everyone. You might cause
Mm-hmm.
chaos, because somebody called for sneeze. You wait, you know.
Girl, my dog coughed the other day, and I said, "Sonny, really?"
See?
I
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
you on that one. But Chanda, for me, you know what? I'm trying very hard to take the positives out of things, and I really believe that whatever your faith is, I really believe that we're at a time when God has really it's a reset, and our country
Hmm.
needed to be reset.
Yes.
Because you both you guys know me and you know how I am about lying and all of that stuff.
yeah.
It does not fit well with me. So just the fact of our country right now is being reset, and I really believe that we need to be sit down in this form, in fact, to be able to move forward in the new norm, whatever that
Hmm.
might be.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to always try to take the positive. And being a recovering bulimic person, for me, isolation has been really hard. So I got to try to think of taking the positives for a new step in order to be
Yeah.
able to survive. So I'm gonna say
I,
this is a reset, and this is, hopefully we'll come out of this bigger, better, and be able to do things. I ain't like touching nobody anyway, so there ain't no problem. I like hugging. I don't want no
But
well,
we will come out of this, I think,
yeah.
better, and because I think God is telling us to be still, and and once you be still, even with our isolation, it allow you to focus on things that you didn't really think you had time to focus on. Be able to pull in that
That's
positive
true.
energy, being able to
Yeah.
reset, being able to be centered, and then allowing those good vibes to uh, come inside of us, and then so when we ready to go out into the world, that now we coming out speaking in a much positive, upbeat tone. So, I don't know. I'm not a
I
prophet, but anyway.
no, I think those are excellent points. I mean, and I think right along the lines of how a lot of people are trying to approach this. Certainly you pray for those families that have been affected, lives that have been lost.
Yes.
Hopefully we can curb that. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah,
But
that's,
then,
oh gosh.
I mean, it's and the health care workers who are constantly every day putting themselves on the line to help us come out of this better. So hopefully that will happen, and we can avoid as much loss of life as possible. But yeah, you kind of have to then think about how can you make a positive out of this? How can you use it to reconnect with people? You don't always have to be in the same room, to communicate and to stay in touch. And even, amongst our families, we're on the go so much. This is forcing us to kind of be a little more quiet, be at
Yes.
home. Like I thought for a minute, okay, if I have my child for 24 hours, I'm gonna go crazy. I don't know how I'm gonna handle it, but I have surprised myself. I have done okay, and we're having fun with it. So I think little things like that that it's allowed us to do in spite of all the uncertainty and the anxiety, and hopefully we can just come out of it as good as possible. But yeah, this has been fun. I mean, the time seems to go so quickly. We've got like about a couple of minutes left. So Jackie, I just want to say thank you for this conversation. It has been fantastic, so much fun. I mean, we got to get you back on. I mean, we got.
Oh yes, anytime. Hey, you guys, my team.
You got to call Jason, and we got to set you up a show because you got a lot of information and wisdom you need to get on out there.
Absolutely.
See, there she goes. See, I'm telling you.
And the children's book, we need that.
Yes.
We need that. My daughter, she loves books. I want a Jackie Joyner-Kersee children's book. I'm ready.
Okay.
We're ready.
All right.
So yeah, this has been a lot of fun. For those of you watching, listening, if you've enjoyed our show, please continue to tune in. If you want to support those in the tennis community, you can go to zinagarrison.org and donate to the Zina Garrison Academy. She's continuing to do fantastic things and just trying to support local pros and those who are supported by tennis and who are struggling during these times. Also, follow us on social media, Game.Set.Chat Live. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as well. And let us know show topics you'd be interested in. We love having this be an interactive show, and we've enjoyed your questions. And it's been another fantastic one.
Yes, thank you.
And Jackie, I just want to say to you once again, all the great work that you've been doing, the leadership that you have given us all. And for any of the young people out there that needs to have advice, you've had two great people that have been on this show, actually three, Leslie Allen, Billie Jean King, and also Jackie Joyner-Kersee. And there's no reason in this day and time that you shouldn't be able to reach out to some older or wiser person and get a little bit more. I just called y'all old, but anyway.
That's okay.
I'm old.
That's all right.
So that. Well said, Zina. And that's our show for today. So it's been a lot of fun. Join us next time for Game.Set.Chat live at a distance.
At a distance. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
I think we're still. Well, we'll just keep talking.
Are we good?
Jason, hi. This has been real. You guys hit the button.
Off.